everyone, it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today for a new video tutorial. And today I'm very excited to be featuring some new Hero Arts products, and I'll show you how I created this really beautiful DIY ombre stamped background, and I did some layered stamping over top to get this gorgeous silhouetted night scene. To start off, I'm going to be taking this Starlight Starbright background stamp from Hero Arts, and I'm going to begin stamping the background. I've taken a piece of Gina K white cardstock and taped it inside of my Misty tool. Using some Altenew crisp inks, I'm going to start covering a bottom portion of this background stamp with some of the ink that I'm stamping with. I'm only covering a portion because I want to create a DIY ombre effect. So by taking just some of the ink and I'm beginning to add that color along the bottom portion, that's giving me a lighter area of my stamping. I'm going to stamp this multiple times to really get this paper saturated with ink. Now you don't have to worry about those hard edges that you see along the top of my stamping. We're going to be blending colors together by adding additional colors of ink on top of our already stamped background. The more ink you apply, and when you really go over this a couple of times, the inks are going to start blending together and you're going to have those harsh lines disappear. This is what's really helpful about using a Misty tool for this technique, because you can stamp over and over again in the exact same place and your stamping will always be crisp and beautiful. As you can see, I'm really getting some nice blending to go along here now. I'm stamping quite a few layers because I want a lot of beautiful saturated color, but I also want to get these colors blending. I'm also pulling in some purple here and there by swiping it across my background stamp. By doing a swiping motion, you're going to get a little bit more of an organic placement of the ink. You don't have to swipe, but I really do like the look that it gives. And as you can see, I'm bringing in more of that lighter ink color just to keep allowing these colors to blend together. And by this point, I've really saturated this background, and you can see I can't even see the areas where there were harsh lines from the original stamping. Now the next portion of my stamping is going to be adding the silhouetted areas. Now, I'm using pigment ink for this technique. For the background, I used dye inks, but pigment ink is different from dye ink. Dye inks are going to soak into your paper, and that's how we got that gorgeous blending effect. Pigment inks sit on top of your paper. So this is why I can go over top of all of that stamping with this black pigment ink, and I'm covering up that entire starry sky. And that's allowing me to get a perfect stamped effect without having to die cut anything or create additional layers. This is all one layer right now. And as you can see, that black pigment ink is covering over everything, and we cannot see through the ink because of the type of ink that we're using. And that's what's important about this technique, is to know which inks you have on hand and which inks will work for the techniques that you're trying to use them for. So in this case, a pigment ink is going to cover over anything that you have underneath it, whereas a dye ink would not. I'm going to continue adding elements from the Wish I Might stamp set. That's where the grass and the little tree swing, the tree branch that you saw me playing around with the placement of before I started stamping the swing. And I'm going to add a few other elements too. All of these are from that Wish I Might stamp set. As you also notice, I'm stamping at least 3 times each of these images that I'm stamping with the black ink. This is just going to make sure that I get a really great crisp coverage of ink, and it's not going to show through any of the stamping that's underneath. So another handy reason to have a Misty tool is for something like this, where you're going to want to get a really good coverage. Having a Misty tool is going to allow you to stamp over and over again and get that crisp stamping that you need for this beautiful result. This girl is such a cutie. I love how she looks sitting on the little tree swing, and I'm also bringing in a couple of the animals from the Wish I Might stamp set too, and I'm stamping those onto the scene as well. Now you'll notice in areas where the black stamping is overlapping, by the time it dries, you can't even see where those seams meet up, which really makes this whole entire stamping look really perfect because of the way these inks are reacting with each other. Now the next thing I wanted to do is take some spray ink. This is some Altenew Iridescent Shimmer Spray, and I'm just spritzing this over the background, and I'm allowing it to have some big splatters of spray just so it gives a little bit of extra interest to the background. I'll also bring in a sentiment from that Wish I Might stamp set and stamp it onto some blue cardstock with embossing ink. I'll take white embossing powder and sprinkle that over top of my stamped sentiment, and then I'll heat set this and then fussy cut out the sentiment so that I can pop it up off of my card. You could just cut this out into a rectangular little banner. However, I really love the look of a fussy cut sentiment. So I'm just going to go around the outlines of those greetings, and I'll pop this up off of my card panel using some foam tape. Now you'll notice in the sky I did add a few white blizzard glitter Nuvo drops and a few iridescent stars from Pretty Pink Posh. But that's going to be the extent of my embellishing because I wanted to make sure that the beautiful contrasting scene was really taking center stage on this card. So with that, I finished up the entire card by just adding it onto a white card base, and I really love how these inks reacted to create this beautiful silhouetted night scene. I hope that this tutorial has given you some inspiration and also taught you some good tips for creating with both dye and pigment ink. And by seeing how you can not only create some ombre or blending effects with dye inks, but also how pigment inks can react by stamping on top of a dye ink, and you get a beautiful, crisp image and nothing's going to show through that pigment ink. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that today's tutorial has been inspiring. You can find more inspiration on our YouTube channel and blog, and I will be back again with more videos to share. Thanks for watching.